Freidenberg. I am on the faculty of the law school and one of the faculty hosts for our series that we've been running all year with Charles. And I am delighted to give you Charles to do the formal introduction of our terrific guest speaker tonight.
Thanks, Joel. So Joel Freidenberg from the law school. And so welcome everybody. There was confusion about this week's lecture, so Joel, thanks for your patience. And I know some people weren't sure if we were on tonight, so thank you for coming. So Professor Shalem Coulibaly is our special guest this evening. He's an old friend from Machane Yehuda. That's another story. So Shalem is from Côte d'Ivoire originally. He did his doctorate of philosophy in France at the Sorbonne. He's a student and disciple of Emmanuel Levinas. And he taught philosophy and studied in France, in Israel, and now he's a professor of philosophy in Ouagadougou and one of the founders of a university in the capital of Burkina Faso. Shalem is an observer of European antisemitism in the 1990s while he was living in France. He and his colleagues created JUAF, J-U-A-F. It was Jews and Africans. It was an organization for Jewish and African dialogue and rapprochement. He's actually in the process of attempting to create an Emmanuel Levinas Center in West Africa for African and Jewish dialogue and understanding. And this was the first organization in France that existed ever between Jews and Africans. He's also involved in defining issues of anti-Semitism and the language and discourse, as well as the metaphysical poison of anti-Semitism and hatred in general. And that Shalem is an international scholar who's not just fluent in many different languages, but is fluent in African, European, and Jewish thought, which is fluency beyond fluency in one civilization is enough. That's right, it's fluent in three. So it's a great honor to welcome a brother and a friend and a scholar.
I like to stand up and speak because that's our work as a professor. We used to stand. There is a table, but I prefer that in the good positions. So I'm going to introduce myself again. He did it so well, but I see that I have a sister from Ghana. Ghana and Ivory Coast, it's the same mixed population, and the democracy is the same, but it's a pity that there is no much Africans in the public, so that will be a good discussion. What I'm going to speak about is globalization, antisemitism, globalization, antisemitism in Sub-Saharan Africa. That means West Africa. Mainly, why West Africa? Because we already know that in South Africa, West Africa, and North Africa, the Arab presence is very strong. And West Africa was the last party in the strategy of Islamization of the world that was not accomplished. Now with Mali, it happened, and it's for a long year we'll have to fight to protect people's life, to protect our friends' life, and also to protect the small and the starting democratic area. What I'm going to speak about today has to deal with three things. First of all, a main constat, the facts about anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism in the world. That is a fact. And after that fact, I want just to ask some questions. It's speculative questions. It's more philosophical questions. But my way of dealing with questions are very simple. Because my English is Afrikaans, French, and Israeli, let's say, accents. So when I speak my English, sometimes people have to type terms. So my questions are very simple. and simple questions are very interesting to help people to catch what you want to say. At the heart of globalization, while the states in the world tend towards a realization of a cosmopolitan society, that makes an international society, in the meaning of the philosopher Kant, that means that we'll have the UN and everything will be dealt by all the humanity. At the same moment where the world is trying to build up a global world, when the survivor of Holocaust had worked for peace, to create a world of peace, paradoxically, at the same time, humanity seemed to plunge, to go back to elementary feelings, to regressive and barbaric practice, to crimes against Jewish everywhere in the world. With globalization, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism became world global warming. It will become a total and an absolute ideology. Amongst this new anti-Zionist, which is equal for me, anti-Semitism and anti-Zionist is synonymous. I have already wrote an article about this, but we'll come back again. Among this anti-Zionist and anti-Semitist, there are black people. There are people from third world. There are people from my native country. So my question is whether we are going back to the period of Hitlerism period. Do the humanity is going back to the times where Hitler and his ideology were researching Jewish on the base of race difference to kill them? That is a very important question. Because in France, in Europe, everywhere, there is attack against Jewish shops, against Jewish life, against people who just want to live the life where their parents came, in France, in Belgium, or United States. So the question is to know, we have to ask, is to know if the will of power that we see with the new ideology that some Muslims or some Muslims, black, green, yellow, profess, if that Islamization of the world is not going back in the Middle Age period. To begin, I want just to ask to put up some questions concerning why in the 1980, when my friend and I, we were creating bridge between Jewish and African, why at the same moment some Africans from the same origin like me, or from Caribbeans, or from France, were creating or exporting Afro-Americans, activists, anti-Zionists, and anti-Semitism? That is a question. And why it happened that today you can see this guy whose name is Seba, who has been educated and trained by the black Islamist, the Islam nation, received honors and is now the leader of the anti-Zionists in France. Now he's living in Africa. He come back to Africa because he doesn't want anyone to live in France. The question why this guy was exporting activists, Afro-American activists and anti-Zionist ideology to France. Why at the same moment, me and other friends, we were few, very few. We were, that is to smile. We were 4 persons, 3 from a Muslim family. There is Abulay Baro, Suleiman, Hosseini Fatai, and after one Jewish, Maurice Dorez. He is a little Jewish, but work in Africa, and that's a Jewish Africa. He is a Jewish Africa, and the other Muslims, Suleiman, Abulay Daro, and Husseini, we were Africans and pro-Zionists. Okay. The question is to ask why it happens some people refuse to be anti-Semite and to be anti-Zionist, while other people accept to be it. This question is very important. And with this question, we have to come to philosophy. The method used by philosophy to describe things. I will give an opposition for, I apologize if there are people who like phenomenology. Jean-Paul Sartre, Rousseau, all these big philosophers are very important. But we have to ask one question. Why European philosophy failed to prevent the society from committing Shoah? Why they were not able to describe what was happening between the two worlds? So my first part is a methodology, is against methodology, and the methodology of phenomenology. If you want to describe some things according to the phenomenology, you have to go to the root of the things. The intentionality has to create a kind of, not dialectic, but interactivity between the subject and the object. That is the basic things of phenomenology. But let us take another element of phenomenology, the consciousness. The intentionality is always watching some things. And without the other, it cannot accomplish its theoretical work. Why this philosopher failed to analyze what they did? At the opposite, why the young Levinas, he was just 26 years old, wrote a small article, 3-4 pages, in the Christian's Review. And he said that la volonté de puissance que l'Allemagne, I will translate it, la volonté de puissance que l'Allemagne retrouve est une volonté qui amène avec elle-même la négation de l'humanité. The power, the will that German society, through Hitlerians, has discovered, bring with itself the negation of humanity. Is not, he's saying, is not only a question of liberalism, it's not a question of ideology, but it concerns man in the deepness of his humanity. Why Levinas, as a young phenomenon, he knew Husserl, that I knew himself. I go to his house. We spoke when I was starting my doctorate. I spoke with him. I said, I want to make a comparison with you, between you and Nietzsche. He said, you know, he was speaking with this Litvak accent. You know, Coulibaly, Nietzsche is a big philosopher, but I'm not a Nietzschean. That was to teach me that if you read as a philosopher, we have to read a lot, but we have to think a lot. But thinking and reading need a methodology. Why Levinas succeeded to see in the title of the article is quelques éléments de la philosophie de l'hitlérisme, some element of Hitlerian philosophy. Why did he succeed? To point out this kind of barbaric ideology. How it happened that my friend and I, we avoid yesterday, today, and tomorrow to be anti-Zionist. Even the majority of our friends come from Muslims family. I will give you just an element. The mind of someone is like his body. What your mind eats, your mind become, and your humanity become what you are eating. If you eat, and after you have a good digestion, your mind can be strong, and you can overcome all kinds of temptation. And anti-Semitism is not a temptation against Jewish, but it's a temptation against our own humanity. So we were reading not only all the Western philosophers, but we were also reading people who cross the tragedy, the non-tragedy of Shoah. We were reading, we were saying, okay, we know the story, we know the story. We know that we come from a slave. Our father come from slavery period. We know that we are still in colonization period. But we were not able, and we cannot understand, in 1980, that Le Pen, all the left party, right party, were insulting Jewish. You are everywhere, every day in the TV, it was a Jewish. And also, through our reading, we were protecting our minds and our humanity. Who were the people we read? I read The Night of Elie Wiesel, Primo Levi, Aimé Césaire, Frantz Fanon. Those people whose fathers were slaves, but they never go in anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. If you take the work of Aimé Césaire, his strong words, he defends black that anyone in the generations did. Never he has a word against Jewish. Fair. Okay. In the contrary, he said that, okay, Jewish, Africans, Indians can say thank you to racists. You don't put us again in Holocaust. You don't want a new Holocaust. Why should Jewish and African say thank you to Europeans? Just barbarian. You have to read discourse on colonialism. So that protects us. So if we are phenomenologists, we are also to feed up our mentality, our spirit, and our body with good readings, and also to think with our readings. That was it's why I never even am a good phenomenologist among the good in France. And I never define myself like phenomenologist. And from that element, I come to another element. Why should a black man like me, who define himself like a Pan-Africanist, and I am, I create also associations, Pan-Africanist Association, Le CAP in Poitiers, you can check it in Poitiers, and Le Club Ivoire de la Vienne. Why and how it is possible for a Pan-Africanist to be a Pan-Africanist, to be proud of Pan-Africanist, and also to be pro-Zionist, and to defend Zionism? How it is possible? It's just possible because, how I say, we reject things that we don't understand. We don't mix confusions. We don't make confusions by word we learn, concept we learn. What kind of confusion we reject? We reject, as I reject today, Judeophobia, Negrophobia, decolonization, post-Zionism. And I will just take two examples. Post-Zionism, post-colonization. What means post-Zionism and what means post-colonialism? I used to ask this question to my students in Tel Aviv and also in Ben-Atar where I was teaching. I said, okay, let's speak about post-Zionism. You say post-Zionism, when something is post, okay, it's ended, it's over. We are in another period. But who killed Zionism? What is what is the period of Zionism? So, one thing to protect, one way to protect oneself from anti-Zionism, from hatred, from racism, is also to think about the concept we are using. That is a philosophical method, I don't know how to call it, but I think that protects ourselves being what we are not. The second thing, the second period things that I want to ask, to put, and you have to know, is some questions. The insupportable old questions which are now problems for Jewish and many for Africans. What means for an African who is a Pan-Africanist to be also a pro-Zionist? First of all, it's a question of responsibility. If you are in life, you have to be responsible. But we all know Jean-Paul Sartre's theory of responsibility pour l'autre. Be existentialist is to be responsible for all the things. But let me take the opposite position, a theoretical position. I think that being responsible is first of all be responsible for oneself. If you are really responsible for yourself, also you can be responsible, freely responsible for other person. So when an African is defending Zionism, when African is a Pan-Africanist and also combating anti-Semitism, is not combating, according to the definition I gave for responsibility, is not defending and combating anti-Zionist for the Jewish, but is defending for in order to protect his own humanity. As I already quoted in Levina's text, in the period of Hitlerian, in the Hitlerian period, people didn't know that they had to protect their own society from the barbarians' ideology. And so, for me, combating anti-Zionism, contemporary anti-Zionism, combating terrorists who hide their goal, which is to destroy Jews. The terrorism, the fight against terrorists is not to fight terrorists for fighting terrorists, is to fight to protect ourselves, our society, our life, the life of our friends, wherever they come from. So for me, the second step I enjoy is that responsibility in fighting anti-Semitism, fighting anti-Zionism is for our own life. And then we can, with a kind of lucidity, fight for Jewish. It's not ideology, it's my description, philosophical approach of responsibility. Okay, we can discuss what means a responsibility for the others, but it was my experience, and that way of thinking, by reading Levinas, by reading Frantz Fanon, by reading Primo Levi, by reading Elie Wiesel, and also by the digestion of our reading, and by standing for moral position, even we are critical, that has been the way and the method my friend and us, even we were from Muslim family, that protect us to cultivate in ourselves and to be to cultivate hatred and to be what we don't want to be. I will just come now, as I told that fighting anti-Zionism, fighting anti-Zionist, anti-Semitism is for an African's his own responsibility. Let me quote some equation, false equations that is always used by pro-Africans who are pro-Palestinian, or sometimes who have this weakness to understand some fighting, that independence fighting. It is very important. There is 4 equations I want to underline that a responsibility for the African I am, and the Zionist, the pro-Zionist I am, and not a post-Zionist or not a colonial, but I'm the man and moral man I want to be and to remain. Usually people, by their objectivities, by criticizing Israel policy, or by intermerging in the conflict between Israel and Palestinians, they use some equation. And Africans have to take care, and they have to understand that are false equations. What are these equations? The first equation is Zionism is colonization. That is a false equation. Just one remark. Where did you see that Jews want to transform Palestinians into Jewish? To eradicate the civilization and to make all the Palestinian Jews? No. There is no this kind of imperialism, religious imperialism to transform. There is no colonization. That is a question even Jews have to learn. Sometimes in the newspaper we use this word in English, colonization, settler. No, there is no colonization in that word. And as Africans, I consider like an insult to take some things like colonization and to put in a conflict which is nothing to do with colonization. That is the first false equation. The second equation is to say Zionism is racist. I will just, because we put out, but life is life. When you are born from a family, my mother doesn't know one word in French. Those who know that my mother was born during the colonial family, the colonial times, as she is from a family of chief, she went to white man's school one day, and she come back at home. She said in language, I don't want to go back there. I don't know what I'm doing in this school. I would prefer to go to the farm and to help my mother. And she just spent one day in a modern school. But her son is a man of many civilizations. And so, okay. So my mother told me that everywhere you go, what you have in your heart is what people will give you. Is Israel is racist? Is Zionism is racist? I've been living 10 years in Israel. There is no ideology. There is no rational theory in the Bible, in Israel society. I don't say there is no discrimination. There is no problem like in all modern states. I will be a liar, not be conform to my ethic way of thinking. But there is no such kind of ideology in Israel that say that Zionism has to be a racist, and racism is the ideology. Let me say, they are speaking today of Ethiopians and Falasha. But the time the Falasha were starving in Ethiopia, the times they were killing there, they were starving, and many were dying. Which country, which African country spends $1 to protect one life? One Ethiopian, one Falasha life? No one. So sometimes we have, in our objectivity or critical objectivity, we have just to speak with fact and to go on and to interpret the fact as we have to do it. The Jewish paid Sudan, North Sudan now, they paid Arab state just to save black lives from black state, as they did today with Sudan, South Sudan. They give visa, they give even to Ivorians. When 2 years ago, when you were from Ivory Coast, you were welcome in Israel. They give paper, the possibility. Who give to Ethiopia, to the Falasha, even to the students, visa, a shelter, a peace? No. No one, no African state did it. Sometimes when we make some equation, we have also to see fact. we were speaking with my friend, say, you know, you can say you love me, but Jewish tradition say, yes, you love me, your idea, your idealism is big, but just one fact. Just do one thing that is the proof of your love. So my mother said, everywhere you go, what you are really in your life will go out. And what the Jewish have in the mind and the culture is to save. One life is like to save all the world. And they saved Sudanese life. And the war in Sudan was not a war for political area or for business. It was also what we see and what happened in Mali. But African states didn't make one justice. So let's come to the fourth equation, racism. There is no racism. I can say that as I know what happened in the Jewish community, I will say that the only person or the only tribes which is discriminated in Israel is the Levi and the Cohen. And after we have Israel. Let me explain you. It's a very interesting, it's a philosophically interesting. You know, the Jewish love, what I like with the Jewish, they love reading, they love books. Okay, in the society, the hierarchy is Cohen, Levi, and Israel. You can be converted yesterday, but you are Israel and no faith, no way, no discrimination. Okay? But if you are Cohen and Levi, okay, if they have to read the Torah, Cohen, Levi, and after Israel, that is democracy. No, you converted, no all converted, no the father of the president. You are in Israel, you don't say, I'm the father, I'm the son of the president, and after the Levi it's me. No, Israel. That is the democracy. And the Levi and the Cohen don't have a small piece of land. They don't have the right to have it. Israel has the right to have it. That is democracy. Those who don't want to make a theory, they have to take inspiration from that. And the first time I see it and I try to, I say, yes, that is good, you know. Even you come from the jungle, if you are converted, you are the equal of everyone in the society. You are Israel. Nothing, no way. Okay, if you are Levi like this guy, okay, it is the patron. But the patron is patron only when we have to read the Torah. But in the society, don't have more right than another one. His only right and privilege is when he has to work like Levi. And if there is a temple, he has to work, and I will come and say, okay, do this, and we'll do. So there is no racism. We have to be, there is no racism. I don't say there is no stupid people, okay, all over the world, but I say there is no racist theory. And we Africans, we have to know this. The third thing is Zionism is apartheid. Let me tell you that I was not in I grew up, I was defending apartheid, even I went to, when I was young in France, and we go to East Germany, defending South Africa, and so, okay, there is no kind of apartheid. A press novel make the film, he said that, okay, the society is like apartheid society. I think that for the three elements I quoted for Africans: colonization, racism, and apartheid are eccentricity of Africans. So we don't have to sell it in the garbage. We don't have to give it for the fight that not concern us. We have to protect and to save our historicity from false equation. It's why the equation between Zionism and apartheid and the society of Israel with apartheid society is not the way. It's not the same. Those who want to do, they have just to go to Israel to have the visa. They have to stay there 1 year, 2 years, and they try their eyes, they can do it. Remember that I told you that the method, phenomenology method, fails to see, to describe things. And I'm not a man who just say things because I'm under ideology. No, it's not possible. I was young, I didn't do it. It's not now, I'm going to do it. So this third equation has also for Africans an importance because some people use the tragic element of African story in order to defend what we cannot defend. The last equation, fourth equation, that come from a president or an elected president is that Zionism is a crime against humanity. That is the last thing that I think is disturbed me, and I quote it, I put it, but I didn't finish to think about it. The description or the understanding of that word is so hard for me. I just got it to some day ago, and I didn't want to go inside of it, but it's obvious that it's not a crime. Zionism is not a crime against humanities. I just give you examples. Sudanese people, they are black, more black than me, but who give them protection? Who help them? All the world shut them out. Israel give bridge, take plane, give them the possibility just to save their life. Why did they do? Which Arab country fought against the crimes that the presidents of North Sudan was doing? They were killing those people because they are pagan, according to the Islamist point of view. They are pagan that we have to convert. How it's possible that we have such a pagans in South Sudan? It was a racist war. And as Africans, now our generations, we don't have to support this African state who don't help our own nation. Israel did it. If Israel was racist against blacks, they won't do it. They won't do it. And the moment they do it, it was not after the Sudan independence. It was before. It was before. They did it till the independence of South Sudan. So that is as Africans, as those who want really understanding between people, Jewish and other people, we have just to take care about element of our civilization and our historicity. Okay. After this question, I'm coming just to the important part of my lectures, which is about Sub-Saharan Africa and Islamism. First of all, if you want to understand how it happened that today Mali has been attacked by Muslims, by Islamists, you have to go to the 19th century. 19th century, colonizators used Muslims, African Muslims, first of all because there are many shops, they go everywhere and there are connections with Moscow, there are connections. But after, when this same Muslims say that the colonizators were Christians, they start to fight again, these Christians. I just quoted, I can just give you the name of Samori Touré, who was a big resistance, well represented in African memory, like a big personality because he was a good resistance, but also he was also making Islamization of West Africa against Christianity. But that at the 19th century. How Islam became fanatic in West Africa. First of all, I can say that in 19 was the turning point. My generation fought for democracy, democratic value. We were opposed to Ufubani, to all the dictators. And at the beginning of 90, they turned our combat, our fight to what? Representative democracy. From 19 2 at the ball in France, 2 today. They open doors to Islamization. When I was young in Africa, there were no women were going with the veil. Not at university. Only the Wahhabiyah. The Wahhabiyah in West Africa, they were the minority and the minority. We were look at them like, not animal, but with the way of bizarre. But today, they are the majority. Till last year, I was the Secretary General of a private university, Université Ouagadougou, in my own university, as a private and like university, but we accept people with veil. But that was not possible in public school. I just give another example. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when I went to teach at Burkina University, my first course, it was between 3 to 8, because we don't have many classes. So sometimes you have one day, you start at 3 and you stop at 9 in the night or at 8. When you are lucky, you can do in the day. So I give them, like at 5, I give them just 13 minutes, just to rest. And some Muslim students come, we want to go to prayer. And I say, what? They say, we want to go to prayer because, I say, okay, you're going to go to prayer, but if the Christians say that is the Angelus, and I want to go to prayer, who am I going to teach? If the animists say that I have to go to the forest here and to make my group, who is going to teach? I told them, this is a public university, it's a like university, I'm paid to give courses, and no one, if you want to pray at the moment I give you, don't come to my course. Don't come. You decide to go to prayer as Christian, or I don't go as the pagan or as the animist, but if you enter in my courses, you know that is a public and like courses. So no way for religion things. That was the first thing. The second thing that I saw that fanatics, Christians and Muslims also become more fanatics. The first thing is I see a big advertisement. Crusade for Jesus at the big place in Ouagadougou. It's called Place des Nations, nation places. And I was shocked by the word crusade here in 21st century. And I went to the one boss, with my friend. I said, who allowed this? He said, that is normal. I said, no, you have to see that is dangerous. Okay, no, it's not dangerous. Every year they do it. I said, okay, I'm Muslim. Okay, you know me. Okay, I'm Muslim. Okay, my friend is Muslim. Tomorrow, if they write jihad for God, how did it stand in your? How did you accept it? So, I didn't think it. That is dangerous. We were in 2006. Okay, and 3 years after, Christians and Muslims start to kick themselves in a small village in Burkina Faso, like in Nigeria. So how Islam become a fanatism, and now how it's possible that all West Africa will become like in Nigeria, where Christian mosques are being bombed by jihadism. How is it possible to become? So we have to take now into account sociological factors. Poverty, the lack of morality of the leaders, the starving of populations are the way that terrorism will become strong in West Africa. Meanwhile, another way, at the moment, Christians are becoming more fanatic, also the Muslim become more and more fanatic. But I come to the first questions that I asked in the beginning. Do with terrorism, do with the Islamization, do with what I quoted like crimes against the Jewish, do we are going back to the period between the two wars. I'm sorry, I'm not an optimist person. I'm a Nietzschean, and I try to be a lucid person, but I think, yes. Even there are philosophers in France today who deny the reality of anti-Zionism, antisemitism. I'm not optimist. I will just use a word to finish. When in 1994, I spent 10 days with Elie Wiesel in the castle in Normandy, Cerisy. And we were in the car, and I told to Elie Wiesel, you know that African tradition say that man is the medicine for men. And Elie Wiesel, I was just close to him, and he said, yes, also man is a problem for man. Man is killing man. I never forget it. From 1994, when I'm thinking, all the time I give myself barrier limits not to be idealist, too more idealist. I'm an idealist, but not too more. I want to be a skeptic, like it's the Nachman Braslav say that every time before the disappearance, there is a step for hope. So I'm not optimist, but I'm like a disciple of Rabbi Nachman Braslav. I like how to say, okay, it's a bad situation, but it can be good. So my conclusion is, I will conclude by the previous remark. Unlike Islamism, Islamaria, Ummat in Nabi wants community, universal religions, nation because they are very proud, and they think that with the number they can conquer the world again. I will say humbly that black in the world, those who are not hypocrites, those who want just to live and to give what they work for to their children, I ask this person not to forgive or to let Africa facing Islamization. Why? Because Islamization will be for Africans to go back to slavery time. So I, among those who always try to create bridge between Jewish and African, and those who want to join us and to fight those who want to kill us. To kill us because we don't have the same way of believing, of thinking, of being like human beings. Thank you.